Here is a tutorial on how to make your very own mitre, Pope mitre. It could be for cosplay, like I made mine for my ghost cosplays, or it can be for a Renfaire or a theater. Materials you need is 4 sheets of legal paper, a pen or pencil, and an eraser. And some tape. It doesn't have to be masking tape, any tape will work. 3mm and 5mm EVA foam, scissors. You'll need big sheets of the foam, those are just small samples so I can show you. A hot glue gun, and a flexible measuring tape, and fabric of your choice. And depending on how fancy and pretty you want your hat to be, some fancy trim or ribbon. First step in making the pattern is taking your 2 pieces of paper and slightly overlaying them and then taping it down the center. Taping it down the center will help you with symmetry. Next step is to measure around your head with the measuring tape. This will help you know how big to make your hat. My head is 23 inches around, so I'm going to find half of that. And half of that is about 11.5. We're only doing half of the length because we're going to be making the front and the back separately, and when we glue those together, the hat will be shaped correctly. And also help it fit your head. Using the middle of the paper, I found half of my head, 11.5, which is about 5.5. So splitting it down the middle will make both sides equal and have the same measurement on both sides. Then I sketch the general shape I want the hat to be. Don't be super perfect or precise with this, just roughly sketch it and then you can refine it later. This part's a little awkward because of how big the paper is, but use a mirror to make sure the shape is right and the height you want. Once you have the height and shape you want, fold the paper in half, and yes, I redid it on the back side. But fold the paper in half and now cut it out, and both sides will be symmetrical and the right measurement. Leave some extra room around the side because the EVA foam is thicker than paper and it will shorten your template, so the hat will be too small if you follow your sketch directly. It also adds room for editing in case you don't like the shape later, or like here I wanted it more at an angle, so that extra room on the template allows me to change the design. Once you have that cut out, again, add extra room just to be safe. You can cut it out later, but put it on your EVA foam and cut out 2 pieces. Again, test fit it in the mirror. I have it a little too far zoomed in, so I need to bend down, but the hat is perfect in the shape I want. Cut out 2 of those pieces, and once those 2 pieces are cut out, very slowly and carefully glue small sections at a time. I'm using the floor to keep both pieces flat and against each other so they're not off-center and the glue doesn't spill out. You want to glue small sections at a time, because if you just put a giant stream of glue down the center and try to glue it at one time, it's going to be really difficult to keep the pieces together without the top part or bottom part sliding off-center and then just ruining your piece. And if glue does spill out here, you can just take the tip of your glue gun and then melt it and spread it along the seam. This actually helps bind the 2 pieces together stronger and make your piece more durable and sturdy. So it's very good if glue seeps out, because then you can make your bond stronger. Test fitting again after I got both sides glued and seeing if I need to trim anything. I put tape down the center so my pattern is symmetrical on both sides. I'm making Papa Nail from Ghost, but you can do whatever pattern you like. Once you have the pattern you want, take it off of your hat and then tape the extra 2 pieces of paper together and down the center again, and make sure you line up the edge of your tape pattern with the center of the paper. And then do the same thing we did with the hat, basically fold the paper and then cut out your pattern. Again, leave a little extra room around your pattern because EVA foam is thicker than paper and it's going to warp your design a little bit. Test fit it to see if it looks right on your hat and if you like the design. And once you have that cut out, transfer it to 3mm EVA foam, trace it on there, and then cut it out. Also, just adding this in here, look at references of actual miters, like from actual popes in history or currently, or even Renaissance paintings. Every pope had their, or religious figure had their own design on their hats, and they have a lot of intricate detailing and trim and ribbon or whatever. So just look at reference of actual miters. It really helps with inspiration and just getting the general pope look down. This was the first hat I made, so there's a lot of errors on it. I used 5mm foam, but I learned from this and moved on to this one. I actually used 3mm EVA foam for the trim, and you can see it's sort of 3D and gives it a more crafted look. It just adds a lot of detail. It raises the design off a little bit and makes it look nice. But this is what I was talking about, of adding 3mm EVA foam with your trim fabric just to make it look a little more 3D. Same on this one. I did these gold pieces with the 3mm EVA foam. You can see it's coming off the hat a little bit so it doesn't look flat. This one, it's the most basic design, so I just did flat trim on it with no EVA foam. But you can either do just your trim design flat on the hat itself, or you can do an extra step and make it a little more pronounced. Once you have your trim pattern all taped and done and cut out, very, very, very carefully glue your base color of your hat, of the fabric, to your foam base. Very carefully. This part is very frustrating to get it to sit right and to get the fabric to perfectly fit over the hat. So very slowly, very little pieces, little sections at a time, glue it to the hat. I have the fabric glued down to both sides of the hat, and I made sure to leave extra on the edges so I can fold it over and make it look nice. Wherever there's an angle in the hat, I did a relief cut so it's easier to fold into the hat. And when you're doing this, pull the fabric so you don't get wrinkles on the main face of the hat. I took my pattern piece for the trim and then traced it on my fabric, making sure I got these gold embroidered pieces in the places I want them to make it look nice. And I ended up not doing what I usually do, which is putting the whatever shape trim I have onto 3mm EVA foam and then gluing that to the hat. It usually gives it a three-dimensional look, but I want to save that part for the ghost symbol that's in the middle here. So if you want, you can just glue it straight to the hat like this, your trim to the hat, or you can make it kind of look three-dimensional and do it with 3mm EVA foam. I painted the trim parts gold so they'd look nicer and it fits with the theme of the hat. And I cut out this floral design since it has the same pattern on the back. I just flipped it to give it some contrast and it'll look nicer. I cut it out again and put it near the top and then added little cute skeleton guys. But yeah, there's most of the trim done. I'm gonna do the ghost logo later when I get 3mm EVA foam. Now we're gonna do the inside. Lay your hat upside down on the color of fabric you want on the inside and then trace around it and flip it over. Try to align the halfway point as best you can, then trace around it again, and then leave a bunch of extra room around the outside. This is horribly cut because my scissors barely cut paper anymore, but once you have it cut out, glue it to the points of the hat first and then work your way down. Here it is all glued and in the hat, and if you have any extra left over, just trim that off. Now I'm going to work on the tassels. I just cut out an angled rectangle out of paper, and I'm test fitting it to see if I like the length of it, and then I'm going to trace this onto the fabric I want. Here's my fabric I'm using. I'm using this silver gold cross pattern fabric and then the red fabric I was using before. I'm going to trace my pattern on there and then cut out 2 pieces of each fabric, so I have 4 pieces in total. I ended up gluing them together because this fabric frays really, really bad. and gluing it will keep the fabrics together and make it look nicer. I left an extra piece hanging over because I really want this gold circle to show on the hat because it looks really nice. I'm going to glue it to the inside of the back half of the hat, and now I'm going to finish this piece. And make sure you glue it to the right side of the hat because I have accidentally glued the tassels to the front of the hat accidentally before. But take your tassel piece and then glue it to the inside of the back of your hat. And here it is with the tassels on it. I think it looks really, really nice. I didn't care too much about the centering of the design on the inside of the tassels because you're not really going to see it. But I'm going to end up adding more trim to the front. I did find a big enough piece of 3mm EVA foam, so I just glued silver fabric on it in the shape of the crucifix, and now I'm gonna glue it onto the center. I glued the same ribbon trim onto the outer edge. I just didn't paint it. I think it looks really nice. It looked bare without it. This is what it looks like with both sides glued on, and now I'm going to add more details around and paint the center. And here is the finished hat so far, unless I want to add more trim to it later. I hope you enjoyed my miter tutorial. I've been asked by a couple people to do a tutorial on this, and I can't find the comments, so sorry. But shout out to the people who asked. I had a lot of fun making this. I've been wanting to make this for a long time. And I was honestly putting it off because it's a lot of detail if you look at Papa Nil's hat. Obviously this isn't at all what his hat looks like. But I like to put my own design on it. Like, this isn't at all what Copia's hat is like, but I like to put my own design when I make my cosplays, and I just have a lot of fun making these. And I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and found it helpful. You don't have to use it for just ghost cosplay. You can do it for any other Pope-like character, for like Renfaire or whatever. And I hope you found this tutorial helpful. It's actually really simple. It's just cutting a trapezoid out of foam and putting fabric on it, basically. And I hope you found it helpful. I actually think this is my best hat, like shape-wise. Like, these are kind of short and too round. I really like the point on this one. This one's really good. But I hope you found it helpful, and let me know what tutorials you would like to see next.